Hello once again. My name is Councillor Matthew Holmes. I'm Deputy Leader of Derby City Council. I've been a regular on Ask Amanda Zoom Q&As for many weeks. I've missed a few, but I'm back this week again. Amanda's actually on MP business, and I think she may or may not be able to join us, but I've been asked if I can chair again, which is absolutely fine. I'll step up to the plate and fill Amanda's shoes the best I can. As always, welcome to this week's Q&A, and I'm going to introduce the panel. So first, I'll go on the screen as I see it. Matthew, hello to you. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi Matt, so I'm Matthew and I work in Amanda's constituency office in Derby North.
Excellent, thanks Matthew. Ifti, welcome aboard. I think it's been, is it 10 weeks ago or something when you you joined us?
I think so. I think 10 weeks. Time flies, doesn't it? And I'm Ifti Majid. I'm the Chief Executive at Derbyshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust, and we're the city and the county's primary mental health provider.
Welcome aboard once again. It's good to see you. Gavin, hello to you. If you'd like to introduce yourself and what you do and your background.
Yeah, my name's Gavin Thomas and I'm the Chief Fire Officer, or current Chief Fire Officer. I am Derbyshire born and bred, and I've served all my career within Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service.
Well, welcome, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions directed to you this evening. We're very interested to hear what you've got to say about it. So, Matthew, without further ado, let's have the first question.
Okay, so the first question is, how can we tackle the obesity crisis and improve people's physical and mental health?
Ifti, can we start with you?
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it, really, particularly at the moment? And I suppose, first of all, I think I'll probably start off by saying that there's a very clear link, isn't there, between people's physical health and their mental health. And we know there are lots and lots of benefits that things like exercise can bring, both physically and therefore mentally. But I would just take us back a step, probably, and remind us about something that's called the wider determinants of health. So the things that can have the biggest impact on people's physical health and their mental health aren't actually things that, you know, my organisation or the acute hospitals at University Hospitals of Derby can provide, or even that GP practices can provide. It's things like good housing, having warm housing, having employment, having money coming in, being able to access activity, having confidence in your services, and whether that, you know, local services, whether that's, you know, police, fire and rescue, health services, etc., local council services. Actually, those things account for 80% of the impact on people's health, which is a huge amount. So actually, I would be saying those are the things that we need to think about. Those are the things, and the difference is that those things are everybody's business. They're not just the province of, you know, secondary healthcare services or primary healthcare services. They're something that every single one of us can do something about. You know, we know, I suppose the other thing I would add into all of this is that we know that relationships, how people get on with people, whether people feel isolated, whether they feel part of a group of friends, somewhere where places they can go and talk to, all of these things have this really big impact. And of course, link into those things that I was talking about earlier on. So I almost say, you know, at the point that people end up in my services or going to have an operation in a hospital, it is too late. And we need to be taking actions much earlier in local communities.
And I think that's absolutely right. And I think that's recognised actually by everybody. Achieving that and finding ways to actually address it is obviously the challenge. But Gavin, you're very senior within a large, well-known organisation that we all rely upon. And you face very significant challenges, you know, part of the emergency frontline services. So in terms of mental health, how does your organisation tackle that and look after your staff? That's
something that in sort of the past 5 to 10 years, it's become really to the front and centre of a lot of what we do. We do a lot around education. Obviously, we attend incidents that can be quite traumatic at times. We have diffusing teams and debriefing teams in. We provide access to people within the service and people outside of the service who are anonymous to them, to signpost people to talk to have those conversations. We've been quite big at this, at promoting it's okay not to be okay, and we need to talk about things. We know that a lot of the mental health's predominantly aimed at the middle-aged male population, who in the past have been seen to be quite macho if you bottle it all up, and that kind of goes hand in glove with our service. And we're trying to change that culture and those perceptions within the service. And we work quite closely with the police on this as well, because we share a lot of the buildings with the police, and the police and the fire now do a lot together around mental health and well-being of people. It's something that is gathering momentum every year in terms of our investment of time and effort into this, and we've got people trained, and we've had a lot of support outside of the service when we've had particularly high profile jobs as well. I think the other thing is it's quite key that Ifti mentioned isolation. What have we had for the last 4 months? There's been a lot of people in real social isolation, and that's one thing we've found in our job, that if we can't get them in a group and talking about it, and if they feel isolated, it becomes worse and worse. It just compounds the issue at times.
And the message you're saying there about it's okay not to be okay. You know, I know it's just a slogan, but it shows you that people need to talking and at least opening up if you have an issue. And it's good to know that large organisations, whether they be private or public, are taking that very seriously and have done some great work in recent years. I work in the NHS, and I can vouch for that support network that is there. If you want to use it, but also there's regular checks and balance on staff's well-being as well, and I'm sure that's repeated in other organisations and other healthcare trusts as well. So I feel very valued, and I know that those support services are there for me in my role in the NHS, and it's good to hear, Gavin, that it's there too in the fire service, and I'm sure it is elsewhere. I'll just have a quick word, if you don't mind, Matt, on the obesity side of things. So I'll say, you know, keeping healthy, you know, being active and trying to be fit, and because that when you feel good, when you've got your weight down and you're exercising, actually it has a massive benefit on mental health as well. My tip for people would be to try and be more as active as you can. It's easy to do, whether that be, you know, walking. It's lovely day to day, and over the weekend, you know, spend a little bit more time out and about walking, and also if you can, get a cycle, get a bike, because I do that all the time, and I can tell you it really has helped keep my BMI, you know, the measure of where you are with your height and your weight and your age and all of that. It has kept it below the amber into red level. I'm not saying I don't need to maybe drop a few pounds here and like everybody else over through lockdown, but I genuinely believe my activity on my bike, you know, whether it be go to work or into town and back, has really helped me be far fitter than, I mean, I'm in my late 40s now, so you do need to look after your body. And that's what I'd say. Be active, you know, enjoy the outdoors, and get a bike or just go to the park and exercise. I'm not a jogging person. I think I'd probably collapse in a heap, but that's an option too. Matt, so next question. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think there's something really important. We were talking earlier on about you know, the importance of feeling okay to say when you're not okay. And what I would just think it's a good time for a plug, if that's okay, because we're very lucky in Derby.
Go ahead.
That we have a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week mental health helpline that's staffed by mental health professionals. It's free to call. It's now got an 0800 number, so 0800 028 0077, and that is a really, you know, that is a good start to getting help. If you're feeling low, if you're feeling down, if you don't know where else to turn, give that 0800 number a ring.
Absolutely, and I know if Amanda was here, she'd be saying how important mental health is to support for her. I know she's heavily involved in that, and I'm sure Matthew can relay to her some information about that service, and she can probably get involved in some way to promote that, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Matthew,
Definitely.
next question.
Okay, so the next question up is what steps should we all be taking to prevent household and workplace fires?
Well, there's only one person on this panel can answer that one. Gavin, over to you.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who can answer it. Starting in the house, I think the most important investment you can make in the house is a smoke alarm. And making sure you've got a working smoke alarm on every floor in your house and it's tested regular. Because accidents do happen, and if a fire does occur, the only thing you can't replace is your life or other people's lives. So get a working smoke alarm on every floor of your house. Then it comes around to some kind of, they sound common sense, but they're not always appear common sense approaches. Make sure you've got a bedtime routine. You know the way out of a house. You close the doors after you. Make sure you know where your keys are for your doors, your front or back door, whichever one's your exit. Have a plan that everybody in the house knows if there is a fire. If you smoke, please make sure that cigarettes are extinguished fully, especially before you go to bed. Cooking again, we are very anti in the fire service deep fat fryers and cooking fat. It goes with a little bit of the health that we were talking about earlier. But if we can step away from chip pans, and I know deep fat fryers are a little bit safer, but I prefer to step away from all of that. It's simple things like not overloading plugs, having the proper strip adapters instead of, can you remember the old fashioned block adapters? Don't have those, they're not wholly safe. The other issues that are out and about now is that there's a lot of imitation chargers out there that you can buy cheaply. A lot of these don't meet the requirements that we have in the home and can cause power overloads and electrical fires. Businesses is very similar. A lot of businesses, if you ever have a ride around an industrial estate, you tend to see a skip next to a factory. It's making sure that skip's not up against the factory wall anywhere, that if it is set on fire, it's not going to spread to the building. The same goes with household gardens. Look at the weather today, tomorrow. We've got people are going to be doing gardening, thinning the garden out and potentially having garden fires, which is fine as long as it's safe to do so. It's not near sheds, it's not near fences, it's kept small, it's kept under observation at all times. It's not left to go out of control in someone's absence. And if you do have a fire, please call 999, get out of the house, stay out of the house and wait until we get there. We don't want people trying to tackle fires and get injured or get trapped and put other people at risk.
So Gavin, what would you say is the most common domestic fire, or the cause of domestic fires? Is there one?
At the moment, yeah, it's probably cooking now. It used to be smoking. It's probably cooking materials now, because smoking, there's less people that smoke in the houses. The cigarettes do tend to self-extinguish themselves to a degree now. Cities and beddings, it's all flame resistant now. But cooking, your kitchen's the biggest high-risk place in your home, without a doubt. And the cooking is the main cause of fires.
Getting distracted, looking at your phone and walking away and forgetting that you've got the pan on or something like that. I mean, is it that, or is it just?
Yeah, leaving cooking unattended, pans to burn dry and grills to catch fire. They're probably the most common causes now, fires in the home.
And of course, I'll come to you, Matthew, on this one, because that, if it does happen, you want a smoke alarm to actually tell you that it is happening so you can take action. And we'll probably come back to Gavin about what you do if you say had a kitchen fire, what the steps are that you should or shouldn't take. Matthew, are you going to be honest with us and say that you've got your fire alarms fitted in every level of your house and they've got batteries in and they're all working?
I can absolutely say I've got them on every level. I can say they've got batteries in, but I can honestly say I don't remember the last time I tested them. It will have been probably the last couple of months, but I can honestly say that I don't remember. And I know it's the first thing after this webinar that I'm going to go and do.
Excellent. So Gavin, before I come to you, Ifti, so how often should you test the fire alarms the smoke alarms, that you've got in your house? But also, can you give us sort of a brief run through of about what to do if you inadvertently leave something on the pan and it's set off a fire in your kitchen? What the steps to take?
Well, first with the smoke alarms, test them weekly. We promote Test It Tuesday. That's something that we promote through social media. So all it takes is 2 seconds to hold your finger on a smoke alarm, make sure it's working on the button. That gives you a little bit of reassurance. If you do leave a pan unattended and find that it either is on fire or smoking, if it's safe to remove it from the heat, do so, but don't put yourself at risk. Please don't try and do that. If it's a chip pan fire, don't put water on it because that'll just make it worse. If you have to deal with it, it's a wet tea towel that's laid across the open pan. But our preference is if you can turn the heat off or the source off, do that, turn around, close the door, get out, close the door and call the fire service out. That's the safest thing you can do. You can replace what might be a burnt pan or a burnt grill and a bit of smoke. You can't replace yourself.
Absolutely, very good advice, Gavin. Before I come to you, Ifti, I don't know. I feel a bit validated here because I think Gavin will probably tell me I'm not over, whatever. I haven't been to a hotel for a while, but before COVID, I travelled quite a lot with my family or on business or whatever it was. And one thing that I do is I always, when I get to the room, is look down the corridor, look which way the fire doors are and the fire escapes are, so you've got a route out if there's any issues. And the reason why I do that is just for peace of mind for me, or if I'm with my family, obviously to assist with them getting out safely as well if there's any issues. But one of the things is I believe if you understand the route, it's better because in the middle of the night, you might be woken up, there might be smoke, it might be dark. It's very, very different to a relaxed sort of just coming into the hotel, looking at the room. So I'm not over, am I doing something that other people don't do, Gavin? Or is that something which you'd recommend just to understand the situation you're in say for a hotel and understand where your escape routes are?
I'd certainly recommend familiarising yourself with the way out, because some of these hotels can be quite a bit like a labyrinth at times, can't they? And you seem to be walking around corridor after corridor to your room. But please be sure that hotels we inspect them on a regular basis. They generally do tend to be very well managed, and they have a lot of fire precautions in there. So the chances are that if there is a fire, you'll get alerted with plenty of time to make your way out to safety. But it's always good that if you ever go on a conference or anywhere else, they always tell you where the fire exits are, aren't they, as part of it? And that's no difference in going into a hotel for the same reason.
Absolutely. Ifti, any thoughts on this?
No, I share a level of paranoia in my planning at home. Our whole house is full of people that work in the NHS, and if you work in the NHS, you spend a lot of time doing fire training and evacuation training, and you watch. Certainly we used to watch a film that was called Hospitals Do Burn Down, which I don't know if Gavin, if you have come across that, but it's one of those ones that starts with a cigarette discarded and ends up with a whole hospital engulfed. And the minute you've seen things like that, you start to worry about have I got piles of rubbish in places, and how am I observing my environment? So I can hand on heart say at home we test everything every week and try and have everything decluttered. And the children used to always take the mickey out of us for saying, you remember, this is how you get out of the house. Actually we take sort of fire safety really, really seriously for obvious reasons, and all of our staff are trained every year in fire safety. But I even having said that, it's never ever something that you can be complacent about. Never.
Absolutely. So before we move on then, for me, two simple tips. Test it Tuesday.
Yep.
And make sure you have smoke alarms on all levels of your house, but also test it Tuesday, simple routine. But also check if you've got those old block plugs, the multi-block plugs. And if you have, get rid.
Yeah, get rid. And make sure everyone else in the house knows what to do if the smoke alarm goes off.
Absolutely. And be very careful what you buy as well. I've as Gavin said, I like watching sort of bits and bobs, and I'm a bit of a geek with computers and gadgets and all that sort of stuff. So I watch quite a lot of YouTube, channels. And one of them actually is people send him what they believe is maybe dangerous electrical gear, and it might be a USB something, or it might be something you plug in, or whatever it might be. And the amount of times that he opens up these things that have been imported or been poorly constructed, that seemingly have some kind of safety sticker on them, but they're lethal, absolutely lethal. And he goes through it step by step of how dangerous they actually are. And not only can they cause a fire, but they can be harmful to you as well if you get if you touch them in the wrong way, or they're they go live or whatever. So yeah, you have to be very, very careful, and it's good advice, Gavin. Okay, Matthew, sorry, Karen. Yeah.
Sorry, the other key bit you've just touched on it there is if you've got things like that, don't leave them charging overnight when you go to bed. Turn them on before you go to bed.
Absolutely. Matthew, next question.
Okay, I'll jump to the next question. Just a quick question really for Gavin as well. I remember doing a sort of a fire training course when I was in year 6, which is about 12 years ago now. And one of the key images that stuck with me from that was where they talked about the dangers of candles. And there was kind of someone who knocked a candle over while they were in the bath and it set a bath mat on fire, and someone who had one sort of left and some children chucked a towel over it. And a candle's still a big cause of household fires.
They're not as big, but they are still a cause. So yeah, quite right to raise that. And my mission really with candles, certain times a year, they become more popular than others. But if you do have to light candles, and I'm really against candles, please make sure they're on something that's insulated, that won't transmit the heat through to whatever it's sat on. Because if you sit it on top of a telly, for example, and leave it, it will melt the telly and drop through the telly and cause a fire. Make sure they're extinguished before you go to bed. Don't ever leave them unattended. And be careful where you put them, because it's easy to put them in windows, which is a popular place, but people forget there's curtains or blinds in there. And the candle actually produces quite a lot of heat above it. And you wouldn't think it'd get that hot slightly above it, and it does. They are very, very dangerous. And I'm glad you've remembered the training from year 6, because we still do target all year 2 and year 6, with the hope that throughout the generations, this education will be there. So that's a big tick for us there that's stuck.
That's great. Yeah, that's really good that you still got the the front facing side of it, because obviously with the fire service, you are a public service, and you are every person growing up has always been in awe at the local fete with the fire engine turning up and the firemen and all that, and it's all exciting for young kids, but the message there that they deliver is very serious, and it sticks with you all the way through your life, and it's good that you're still doing that. Matthew, next question.
Okay, so next one is, how well do you think the requirement to wear face coverings in shops has been adhered to?
Well, I think we can all I'm assuming we've all been out and about to a certain degree into retail or grocery shops and whatnot. So, Ifti, what's your experience of that? I know that we work in the health service, so we're used to wearing masks, but how's it been out there? What's your experience?
I have seen, I've always, or probably for the last 2 months, personally worn masks when I've been in shops. And I think we've gone from that place where people were looking at you a little bit peculiar to last weekend I don't think I saw anybody out without a mask and in shops, and I think, which is really good, isn't it? Because there's no doubt that the evidence is growing for the benefit of wearing masks, and we need to get to a point where it is socially unacceptable not to be wearing masks when you're out and about, a bit like seatbelts, so I think that's really important. I suppose I'm also really pleased that I don't think that I'm, certainly in our services, people who are visiting the hospital or our community bases need to wear face coverings, and we've prompted a few people, but we've not had any pushback from anybody so far in terms of their willingness to wear a mask. Actually, I'll be honest with you, I think the bigger issue for me is whether or not people wear masks in the correct way. So I have seen there are 2 things that bother me an awful lot. Is one, where people are wearing masks below the nose, absolutely no good whatsoever, not serving any purpose. And the second one, often not well known, and not helped by television surgery programs, is that you often see people pulling their masks down over their neck when they finished using it, and then doing whatever they're doing and then pulling the mask back up. And of course, what we know is that the neck is quite, it's a hot area. It's an area where if you're standing talking to somebody, you can have droplets landing, and you put your mask down there, and then you pull it back up over your face. And what happens? it's a real route of infection. So I think there's something for me about making sure that we wear our face masks properly, and that then that we then wash them regularly or dispose of them properly. So probably a couple of other quick things that I was thinking about, or I would think about. One of them is about, whilst on one hand we're saying we want everybody to wear masks, on the other hand there are a group of people for whom wearing masks will be really, really difficult. So people with some health conditions, and people who for whom wearing a mask may make them feel really really very anxious. So I think there is something about recognizing and respecting that. I think that's really important. And then just the last thing I would say is, wearing a mask is one set of precautions that are really important. Actually, really good hand hygiene is just the best thing that we can do, and we just all need to just remember that. Don't touch our face, wash our hands as often as we can. If we can't wash our hands, use some sort of alcohol gel, and the 2 meter rule still applies. People get confused, wondering whether it's gone down to 1 meter now, but it's still 2 meters. Wherever we can, it's still 2 meters. So we just need to really be mindful about that as well, Matt, I think.
Absolutely right. And, it is difficult for us to, to remember that there still is an issue, and we all need to do the things which we've been doing for so long in lockdown, and they need to continue. It isn't over. No. And the only way that we will get to the other end of this is by all working together and doing the right things. It's a good point about those that can't wear a mask for whatever reason, and I think that there has to be some understanding there. And I think as we all get used to this, there will be. I personally have found everybody seems to be just getting on with it and doing it, and that reassures me. But yeah, it's a good point that if you see someone without a mask, there may be a reason for that. So you just have to be a little bit understanding, and I'm sure retailers and shops will understand that too. So Gavin, what's your experience? In terms of, maybe work and also just out there as going to do your weekly grocery shop or whatever. What have you experienced so far?
Well, I agree with Ifti. I think it's been a very quick cultural change out there, and acceptance of what we need to do, what we need to wear, not only to protect ourselves, but it's work-wise. We introduced some control measures in the early stages of lockdown, where we're keeping people apart, doing all the cleaning. We've got masks for any interaction with members of the public, and it's just expanded on that over the last 3 to 4 months. But if you go out now in any of the supermarkets, I agree, there's very, very few people who don't have a mask on, and the reality is they've probably got valid, genuine reasons for not wearing one.
I would have thought some of your guys and girls out there doing the work that we really appreciate are probably very much used to wearing very heavy equipment and trained with face masks which completely cover the face and are very restrictive in some way. So I suppose for them to wear a cloth mask or a 3-ply medical mask is probably a lot easier and something which doesn't sort of faze them at all.
Yeah, and if you saw any of the footage when we're doing the pharmacy deliveries, they all had masks and gloves on throughout all of that. And they were delivering the prescriptions for the chemists. Excellent.
Matthew, so what's your experience so far in terms of wearing a mask? Have you got used to it yet? You're seeing...
Yeah, I'm starting to get more used to it. It's, I've been, you probably can't tell, I've been for a haircut recently, and yet I had to have a mask for that. I had a driving lesson early in the week. It was a mask for that. I've been to the shops, been out and about, been on the bus once. It's because it's now that masks are required in so many places. I think it sort of almost feels weirder more when you haven't got it on than it does when you do have. And thankfully, one of the things that we've seen is I've got a few friends and family over in America, some in California, some in Kentucky, and a friend in New York. And their experience over there has been almost completely different, in that when more mask rules came out, there was a lot more pushback than we've ever seen here. And I think that the fantastic thing is across Derby, and it has been from reports from a multitude of people that I've spoken to, are that people are seeing people wearing masks. The vast majority of people have got them. And not those people who aren't wearing masks, the vast majority of them are for the legitimate reason that the government have provided. And people hopefully aren't challenging those. They aren't angrily demanding that people start wearing masks, unaware that there could be a condition behind the scenes that is actually the reason they're not wearing. So I think the vast majority of people are wearing them, and thankfully it seems that the people who aren't able to aren't being sort of bullied when they're leaving the house, which is again vital for them.
Absolutely. We're all very resilient British, aren't we? And I think keep calm and carry on is something which we are very good at. And this is just part of that. And I think that Ifti's comments about remembering to hand hygiene and with the masks now and the social distancing will actually go a long way into us beating this. So yeah, I think it's been a bit of a culture shock, isn't it? Because we've probably seen it in TV news in some other countries where they may have pollution or whatever, and it always seems a bit alien to us. And it would have seemed completely alien to us 6 months ago that, in 6 months' time, everyone's going to be wearing masks in the UK. It would have been crazy. But, these are crazy times, aren't they? And we'll just have to see how things progress. Okay, Matthew, next question.
The next question is, as shielding ends, how successful do you think the call for volunteers has been?
Gavin, can I come to you on this one? What's your thoughts?
I actually think it's been very successful. My experience of it, my partner, she volunteered in the early days. I volunteered when the services were looking for support to the ambulance service over the weekends. And my partner, she went on the NHS app where you register yourself and you put yourself available. And whenever she put herself up, there was lots and lots of people all around showing availability throughout. And I know she did hundreds and hundreds of hours throughout the earlier months of it. The Fire and Rescue Service, I can talk on behalf of them. They've stepped up and undertook a lot of work that's outside of what they normally would, such as delivering prescriptions, supporting hospitals and dentists doing face fit testing for face masks. We've had 12 people seconded over into East Midlands Ambulance Service, driving ambulances for them and delivering PPE. We've still got a huge storage facility at our training centre where we've got all surplus PPE that has come through the local resilience forum to make sure that all services could access it if the supply chain stopped. You see it around the village where I live. People have always volunteered to help each other out, go shopping for them. We were all knocking on each other's doors in the early stages saying, let's just go to the supermarket once rather than go 3-4 times. We'll share the list. I think it's really brought that, I suppose, that British can-do community spirit together in all of this. And I think there's a real positive that's come from this bad experience, and I think that's one of them. People have shown they're prepared to step forward and help others.
Absolutely, and we've talked about this many times, and Amanda's said it as well in previous weeks, that isn't it ironic that a virus has driven us physically apart, but actually it's brought us closer together in many ways, and so it is about trying to grasp those really positive things that have happened in terms of volunteering and community support, and actually use those build on those moving forward. And I know the council, we're looking at now how we can actually use that we're still not out of this, so let's not pretend we're out of this yet, but the neighbourhood working, the community structures, we're actually looking now how we can use what we've learned and what we've built up through the lockdown and emerging from the lockdown, how we can use that positively across the city. So, and I'm sure we're not alone in terms of that work. And I think there'll be real positives from that in terms of grasping that real community spirit. Matthew, I know that, apart from working for Amanda, you are community focused and active in Oakwood Ward. I mean, what's your view? I mean, what was your experience in terms of how you saw things during the lockdown and how the community came together, and how do you think it's going to, progress as we move forward?
Yes, so over in Oakwood, we actually ended up in a situation where we had far more volunteers than we had vulnerable people who were requesting help, and I believe that's been replicated in quite a lot of areas of Derby North as well, and I'm thinking Derby South, and really across the city and likely across the country as well. And that's just the people that we know about who went through the official channels to do that. not including the people who informally knew a neighbour that they were helping out or put a request on Facebook and started helping people. We're not including those people in that channel. I think really it's, as Gavin was saying, it was the community spirit has shone really, really brightly across the city, across the county and across the country, that people, the moment this happened, before we even asked them to start volunteering, helping out other people, they were offering help. They were out there, they were putting their names out, they were shopping for people, delivering prescriptions, they were phoning lonely neighbours or lonely people that they knew. It really has been absolutely incredible, and it's testament to all the fantastic people in the city of Derby, really. It really is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Matthew. Ifti, what's your experience?
Well, the same, very similar to others, really. I absolutely, I mean, I really agree that it's brought out some of the best in people without a shadow of a doubt, and some brilliant examples of how people have gone out of the way to help and support each others. I mean, we've had volunteers working in the NHS. They've been a vital part of our response to the virus, and really, really grateful for that. And I was gonna thank Gavin and the team for their help with fit testing, because that was something that was really supportive. I think it goes beyond volunteering, though, doesn't it? Because it's just that spirit of helping, that spirit of kindness, which we've seen everywhere. And we have a Facebook page for colleagues in Derbyshire Healthcare, and I've seen countless times where somebody who was a colleague was shielding would put something out there to say, I can't get my prescription, or would somebody mind dropping me this piece of kit off, or I've just found out that I'm positive and I've got no food in, things like that. And literally within minutes there were people saying, I can sort this out for you, don't worry about it, I can drop in tonight. It's been a brilliant can-do attitude, and I think any colleagues from our trust that are listening, I'm so grateful for that attitude. It has been an absolutely fantastic response to what's been a really difficult thing, and I know that is mirrored across the city, the whole of the city, in terms of how we've coped. And I do believe, when you look at some of the news, that in the UK we are coping really well, from a health and how we deal with people when they become really poorly, but also from that absolutely vital social support mechanism, which is key to us as getting through this. Because, as we keep saying, we need to be talking about living with COVID for the long term, not getting through this, because it's going to be something that's around for a while.
I agree, and let's not pretend that there's not going to be significant challenges. We had the challenge of the initial outbreak and the surge, and keeping that curve down, which was a fantastic effort from all frontline services and the public as well. Everyone played their part to get us through that. But let's not forget, we are going to face significant challenges, whether there be a potential second wave, which I hope doesn't happen, but we need to be mindful of. But also the economic impact, the social impact. There's so many different impacts from this shock that the whole world has felt, as well as the UK. And we need to stick together. We need to work together to get through this, because it is going to be tough, and there's going to be tough times ahead. And I think that really, hopefully, will be the seeds will be planted from what we've done so far, to actually, just take a step back and actually see what's important in communities, how we can help, how we can also go the extra mile and help each other. And I think that's going to be really important moving forward. Okay, Matthew, next question.
Next question is, so the recent Don't Trash Our Future survey found 99% of people thought litter was a problem. What should we be doing to reduce the amount of litter on our streets, and how can we deter people dropping it in the first place?
I'll come to you, Gavin, again first. I'll just say, though, that there's no excuse for dropping litter. There's no excuse for not cleaning up after yourselves. And I think I've told this story, I may have not, but if I have, I apologise, in a previous Ask Amanda. Other countries, and I think this was from Australia, had a principle of if you visit the beach, leave it in a better condition than you actually when you first arrived. So that means picking up some litter and taking it with you that isn't yours. And if we all did that, and we all had that kind of attitude, actually, we could do so much in our local communities. I know that Matthew does this. I know that I do this with my local councillor colleagues and also some community organisations, we go on community litter picks. And one of the things which people say when we do it is, it's great that you're doing it, thank you very much, but you shouldn't have to. And it's true, we shouldn't have to. So there's no excuse. But it's an attitude thing. It's people taking responsibility for their own local areas and their environment and community. So Gavin, what's your thoughts on this?
It's a real pet hate of mine. And you know, one of the benefits of the lockdown was that if you went anywhere after the first week or two, there was no litter. And sadly, when the shops and I dare say it, takeaways and convenience type fast food rest places opened up, litter appeared again within days. Education's one thing. There's no excuse for it. You can't even use the excuse that there's not enough bins, because there's bins everywhere, and you can keep it in your car till you get home if you can't find a bin. We have to educate and change the culture, the just chuck it away culture. We had an experience where we went to the zoo just after lockdown, and you had to book your ticket. So we were there from 2 PM till 6 when it shut. As we came out, you could see piles of litter where people had just emptied the cars, bins 10 yards away. It's just not acceptable. So one of the ideas we have in our house is, and it'll probably never go anywhere, but rather than fast food restaurants, without naming any, giving you all this recyclable cardboard and paper with all your food in, why don't you buy like a one-off plastic sandwich box that's refundable if you ever want to give it back on a deposit? And when you go for your takeaway, you hand yours in and get a new one back. And then it can be cleaned, it's better for the environment, and you're more likely to look after it if you put a deposit on it.
It sounds like the old Corona bottles. Were they Corona? Was it Corona Pop, or am I just
the pop bottles where you take them back to the pub? I can remember that.
I can't remember the name now, but I remember when I was at my grandma's in Chaddeston, and the pop man came down the road, and you got Cherryade and whatever. And the thing is, you could run out and you could get maybe not been 2 pence, but it was a small amount of money to put in your bottles back. And we were really excited as kids to do that. We had almost like, well, where can we get some more bottles from? Can we go to the neighbours, get their bottles and sort of recycle them? And I think we've lost our way a little bit. We've lost our way a little bit, haven't we?
Sustainable way, doesn't there, than just having the packaging recyclable. There's got to be a sustainable way. Ifti,
what's your ideas to resolve this people who litter across Derby?
Well, I think for me, it comes down to, responsibility that we have as parents to have these conversations with our kids. I think, we have to start early, because you when you're out and about, you do see, school kids dropping litter. And so I think I think education is really important, actually. So, and I think it's not just education about the environment and and how a place looks. I think there's education about the health hazards that litter compose. So I think I think that's really important. I think I absolutely get what Gavin says. I think it's far too. I think we have a throwaway culture, and it is far. Everything is disposable, and I'm very, very fortunate to live on just sort of on the outside of the Peak District. And I remember walking the dogs just after the first weekend that things had been lifted. And it was appalling. It was absolutely appalling, the mess that had been there. And it hadn't, as Gavin said, it hadn't been there during lockdown. And I wonder where the pride is in the environment that we live in. And the thing that you were talking about, Matt, around desire to keep it wherever it is looking nice for other people that are going to follow us. So that said, I do think that it is important that we have a duty to make sure that it is easy to throw things away. So we have bins, and we make recycling easy. I think that is something that we can do. One of the things that had a big impact on me, I live in Chesterfield, not in Derby City, and one of the things that had an impact on me was when they reduced how often they collected the black bin. Because actually that drives you to start thinking differently. you know, so that not everything gets thrown away. You start to think about how you can use things differently. So I quite like that. I'm not quite sure what they do with the bins in Derby, but that was a good thing, I think, when we did that.
Yeah, well, we're a recycling city. I mean, we had a bit of a blip the last sort of 7 years or whatever, but we're bringing that back now. We've got back on track in terms of curbside recycling, and it's really popular. I think we need to just ensure that people understand that we all know this is a minority of people. The vast majority of people agree with us completely and just absolutely do the right thing. There's obviously a minority, and what I would probably say, and Matthew will have something to say on this as well, is we are now, as we come out of the emergency COVID response, re-establishing our neighbourhood working in the council, and that means at a ward level. And one of the things we have are public protection officers, and they have the power to enforce. So what we will say is that whilst we expect to know that the vast majority of people will do the right thing and have no issue at all, because, you know, we don't have an epidemic of litter, it's just certain individuals, for whatever reason, doing it, they will have the ability to be fined. So just be careful. You know, if you're not going to follow the rules and do what the vast majority of other residents are going to do, then you're going to risk having a hefty fine and the embarrassment of that as well. And that's something which our public protection officers will be prepared to do as we start to see them more and more now in the coming weeks as we emerge from COVID. So just a slight warning there. You've got absolutely nothing to worry about if you do what we do, and that is use litter bins, which is a simple thing. If you are going to drop litter, though, be prepared to pay the fine if you're caught. So, Matthew, what's your view?
I mean, litter, I think, as Itty and Gavin have said, litter is absolutely one of my pet peeves. Wherever it is, it's incredibly unnecessary. There's no need to drop litter. As you said, there's bins. You can take rubbish with you. It really just isn't necessary. I know, Matt, that you do a lot of work on tackling litter in Mickleover. I know that in Chadderton and Derwent, the council's doing the same thing. Amanda's been out in Mackworth a lot and across Derby North as well, doing litter picks there. But there are the two things that really stick out for me the most on this was I think we all remember the Blue Planet documentary, the David Attenborough one. Other nature documentaries are available, where he really showed just how much litter and waste was going into the oceans. I think that really made us think, it made us stop, it made us pause for a bit. And I think if we can do the same by showing how much is thrown onto streets, is left in woods and in parks, that's, you know, causing damage to wildlife there and plants there, maybe that again can really stick in people's minds. And there was a fantastic example of a sign that I saw that I think it was York Council or a council somewhere in Yorkshire had done, which said, which was, why are you tossing litter? And it left 3 reasons. And the last line just said, don't be a tosser. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic, because it's one of those ones where it sticks in your mind rather than just a don't drop litter sign. It really does make you, it sticks in your mind, it makes you think about it as well. And I think maybe they're the kind of signs to look at for the future, to really make people notice.
Totally. We need to make it totally socially unacceptable to do it. It just needs to be that way. So yeah, I think we're all absolutely steadfastly behind that really. And yeah, it's a pet peeve for everybody. So hopefully we can finally get to a point where we don't have to do litter picks. You know, that'd be great. We can concentrate on supporting the community in other ways. Right, Matthew, the next question.
Okay, so the next one, Matt, was really for you, which was how long will Corporation Street be closed for?
So very briefly then, because I've spoken about it several times, there's emergency COVID-19 transport measures that the government have asked us to implement, and many other local authorities across the country. So you'll see this not in just Derby, but anywhere else that you may visit in the coming weeks and months. Creating safe space and more space for pedestrians and cycling and sustainable travel in cities and towns. It's really important because we need to ensure that people feel safe in town centres, in their communities, so that we can support local businesses as well, and it allows social distancing. So direct answer to the question, it's an initial 3-month period, and then we will review. We don't have to make it permanent. We will look at it and see whether it has actually achieved what we wanted it to, and tweak it, and then consider. There's schemes on New Toxteth Road to increase cycling, London Road, and the Moorledge as well, which is going to be semi-pedestrianised. We're still going to have taxis and buses at a lower speed travelling through there, but it'll be far better in terms of pedestrianisation. I'm very keen to see how it works. There's other packages as well, which we're looking at now in a second piece of work. in suburbs. So we're looking at that as well through government funding. So yeah, it's going to be interesting 3 months, Matthew, is the answer. We'll see how things go, and we'll review it and see what residents and businesses and partners' reaction is in Derby, and hopefully learn lessons from elsewhere in the country as well to see how it's worked.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll jump on to another question, which was
yeah, we're running out of time. It's flown by. So
we are. I reckon we could probably get one more in. I reckon we can do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So what businesses and venues do you think will be key to a successful revitalisation of Derby City Centre?
Ifti, what's your view on this one?
Well, I suppose maybe a couple of things. I think there's probably two types of businesses rather than naming any of my favourite businesses. But I think I really like the shop local. I really like where we are supporting and helping local businesses, and that's certainly something that I've tried to do during lockdown personally, where I live, rather than going to the big supermarkets, but go to the smaller shops. So I think there's something about shopping local and those people that have set up businesses or have got businesses in local communities, they're the ones that I think that we need to be supporting. And then I think the other thing I would say is on a similar vein, where we've got services or businesses that are providing, essential local community benefit. I suppose things like the quad spring to mind really for the work that they do for the local community, but there are lots of others, aren't there? And those local the sort of businesses that support local community action, the places that open up their venues for community groups. I think those are the sorts of things that I think could have a real will have a real impact. And I suppose the other side, and almost the converse side of that, is I talked earlier on, didn't I, about the wider determinants of health and how important employment is. So we've got some really big employers in Derby. So how do we work with those really big employers to start to think about how do we look after all those thousands of people that rely on them for their livelihoods, even more when we think about their families and the impact that can have on people's health and well-being. So all those roots come back to that for me. So for me, there's both those really local businesses, those really small local businesses, but also because of the impact they have on the city, we need to think about what we can do with the big business as well.
And I think if Amanda was here, she'd be saying that, well, I mean, she'd probably be embarrassed saying it, but I'll say it for her because I know she's a huge advocate for businesses, not just in Derby North, where she represents as an MP, but obviously Derby as a whole. Whether they be small, medium or large organisations. And I know for an absolute fact that she's doing so much work to support local businesses and the medium-sized businesses and our major employees as well. She's part of the Derby Recovery Task Force, and Pauline Latham and Margaret Beckett are too. And I've been involved in some of that work. And I know that there's some great things going on to support Derby economically and our businesses. At a ward level, we're doing what we can as councillors as well to support our local businesses. And you're absolutely right, we've got to use them. I can't say what it is, but Derby is heading for a major announcement, which is really good news in the coming days, which I'm really excited about for everyone to hear about. And I think that whilst we are going to be one of the most affected by COVID, and we know why, Rolls-Royce and various things, we have been working really hard, and I think we're going to come out of this very strong. And I'm very confident that we can support local businesses and we can grow, and the employment will be there for people in Derby. Gavin, what's your view on this?
I think I agree with it's about attracting the businesses and making the infrastructure right for them, and supporting we know we've got 3 or 4 real big name employers who have subsequent numerous supply chains all in and around Derby City. I think they're key, but attracting new business is key. With regards to venues, types of business, the shop local, we've all done that. We've kind of done it through, probably been forced down that route, but we've found the benefits of that. I think a lot of it depends on what the strategy is for Derby City. You say you've got streets shut and you're looking at reducing other streets to keep them COVID compliant, for want of a better word. Are we looking at longer term pedestrianised areas where cars aren't allowed? Will that attract outdoor type venues where you can sit out and enjoy the environment and watch the world go by, really?
And again, that's ultimately the aim, is to transform the city into more recreation spaces, and an experience to because obviously with city living as well, it's important that residents can find a home within the city. So absolutely, we're just at the start of that. But obviously, these are particular, issues with regards to the response to COVID. But absolutely, the city is going to transform in the next 5 to 10 years. More public open spaces within the city centre. It could be a very different place, and it'll be I think, a very exciting place. And we have to provide the venues, the businesses, and the public realm to support all of that.
Yeah, and it all supports the environmental strategy as well, doesn't it? I think that's real key. But we've got the main employers. We've got to do what we can to support those, because livelihoods and generations within households rely on those businesses in and around the city. And we're all going to face tough times, aren't we, over the coming years? We're aware of that. It's how we navigate our way through it.
But we're made of sturdy stuff, and we're going to be there as best we can as a council, and I know everybody's going to be supporting businesses as much as we can too, and we will get through this. Matthew, what's your view on this particular question?
I think Ifti and Gavin touched on it really well, in terms of we're not just looking at revitalisation, we are looking at keeping that localisation that's come out of this. And it is sometimes something to think when we're all guilty of it, when we order things online, is we are at that point sending the money out of the city to other places. And is it better sometimes to pause and think, could I get this at a local business and help a local employer's children get their music lessons, or help them to go on a family holiday at some point? It really is those decisions we make at that point. And obviously, Amanda and myself, yourself and Sophie, who usually ask the questions, we're all at the Derby Food Court opening last Friday. So that, again, is hopefully going to be a really, really fantastic venue for the city that's going to help the local businesses there. It's going to provide a place for people to go to get food, to be COVID compliant in terms of being out there and dining outside, but also bringing back them elements of normality that we had before. And then we've got the announcement, obviously, the venues that we're looking at in terms of, again, bringing more revenue and people and accent business into the city centre. And I think we're certainly moving on the right track here. Again, teasing us, Matt, with the announcement that might be coming soon, so we'll be keeping our eyes and ears out for that one. But we've come out of a damaging and a difficult time, but we are really, really moving the city on the right track and moving the city forward. And that's the key message, I think, to take forward from now.
Absolutely, we need to stay positive and put our money where our mouth is as well, to support the city as a whole. I think we're running out of time, so I think in true Amanda fashion, the final question, I think, Matthew, is words of wisdom. Am I right?
It is, yes.
So this is just basically your closing words to give people some words of wisdom, some advice, some thoughts. Gavin, I haven't given you too much time to think about it, but would you like to go first?
My words of wisdom is just stay happy and keep smiling. It's just good for everything.
There you go. Short and simple and very, very good advice. Ifti? Are you on mute, Ifti? We lost him. Matthew, have you got some words of wisdom while Ifti's sorting those IT problems?
I think mine would be that as we're moving.
Oh no! Ifti's back.
Hold your horses, Matthew. We're unstable, which is
no problem. Right,
a dreadful thing.
Ifti, you first.
Can hear me, okay?
Yeah, well, no, we can. We can hear you again now. It's fine. Go ahead. Oh no, we've lost him. This is like Eurovision. No, he's back. Ifti, you're back.
I'm struggling to hear you.
No, yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Now.
Go ahead.
So, words of wisdom. Three words from me to close, and I'll go quick because of my internet. Tolerance, support, and respect. I think now is the time for us to be tolerant of each other, to show support to each other, and to respect our differences.
Perfect. Matthew.
I was going to say, I think sometimes we all think back about people that we've lost contact with, we haven't messaged for a while, and we always think, I wish there was a reason I had to start a conversation. well, if there's ever been a reason, this is the reason now. We're emerging from lockdown. Life's different for everyone. If you've got people from school, college, from old workplaces or family or wherever that you've not spoken to in months, in weeks, in years, or in longer than that, drop them a message, restart that conversation. Now's the time to do it.
Absolutely. And in closing, I would say, Ifti's already covered this, we all need to try and get back to some kind of normal, and we're doing that, supporting local businesses and going about whatever we maybe returning to work, whatever it might be. But don't forget, we need to stay alert. So social distancing, good hygiene, wear a mask. We can't forget those things. It's easy to do that when it feels like it's getting back to normal. The virus hasn't gone anywhere, and the worst thing we can do here in Derby and the country as a whole is allow it to get hold again, because that would be disastrous. So we can all play our part. Can I just say in closing then, it's been a fantastic Q&A session. Thank you to Ifti, thank you to Gavin, and thank you to you, Matthew. Matthew, have we got any news on who will be on the panel next week?
I believe we have Tracy Harrison and Mark Cotter, who are two returning guests who were fantastic last time. I'm sure they'll be fantastic next time as well.
Looking forward to it. So without further ado, thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Cheers.